Welcome to the SPIRE Sessions. I'm your host, Dr. Zac Bruback, our Director of Mindset Development here at SPIRE Academy. Really excited to get this rolling with our first episode. Today we've got our CEO, Mr. Steve Sanders, with us. I'm going to sit down and chat a little bit about what we got going on at SPIRE Academy here. So thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yes.
Excited to dig into everything SPIRE and first episode, first guest.
Yep.
Let's go.
Pleasure to have you as our first guest. And like you said before, no pressure, which is nice when you got your the person you report to telling you no pressure. You know,
No
that's always
pressure.
good. So
Yeah,
well, thank you for joining this morning. We're going to dig into a lot of different things today. I want to talk about kind of your background and your vision for SPIRE Academy, and just talk about a variety of different things that we've been living day to day. But before we get started, I wanted to share with our viewers a quick little story about my intro to Steve Sanders. So when I started consulting back here in 2021, we were kind of figuring out what the vision was and trying to organize the organization. And you were consulting at the time, and they had asked me to speak with you and kind of tell you about what we were doing from a mindset development perspective. And so I've been on numerous Zooms with you and kind of talked, and every time we talked, you always had a black baseball hat on. So at one point you came to campus as you were kind of transitioning into your role here at SPIRE, and they said, hey, Steve's on campus, he's down at Fuel, which is our cafeteria. You should go say hi. So I run down to Fuel. I spent 4 or 5 minutes looking around, and I'm searching. I don't see anybody that resembles you. I'm like, I don't see anybody there. So I walk back, and they're like, no, I'm sure he's down there. I just talked to him. So I go back, and I'm searching for about a minute, and I see a bunch of people standing around you, and I went up and introduced myself, and we had a little chat. But I said, Steve, I was hard to find you. Didn't recognize you without the black hat. And fast forward a few years, and now you're the face and CEO of SPIRE Academy. So really glad to have you here.
You want to hear the story about the black hat?
Yeah, I would love to.
There's actually a story.
Yeah.
So I've always worn a hat,
right.
Pretty much ever since I was in high school. I think I've worn a hat like every single day.
Yeah.
But then I was watching this interview with Les Miles when he was the coach at LSU. And if you notice, he always wore a white Nike hat. Yeah. And he was getting interviewed one day, and somebody asked him about the hat. Yep. And he was like, it's a symbol of consistency. And he was like, anytime anything's going on, my team knows to look at a white hat, and it calls all the attention and focus, and it gives people something to come back to and somebody to look to come to whenever they're in that situation and need that moment of guidance. So I heard that, kind of been in leadership roles for a while and kind of changed it to a black hat, but adopted that theory and used it as a leadership token.
Why does that not surprise me about you? It seems like a lot of what you do is pretty intentional. So I'm not surprised that the black hat had a meaning. But no, I appreciate you sharing that story. That's the first I've ever heard that. So I did always associate you with a black hat. So we're going to talk about a number of things today, but let's just start at the top right now. Tell us a little bit about your background. I know there's a lot of things you've done, in terms of being in the military, being an Army helicopter pilot, being in military leadership, getting into the sports tech world, working at large, overseeing the strategy for a lot of big companies and events, and then coming here as the CEO of SPIRE. So tell us a little bit about that journey. And then also, what interests you in SPIRE? Like, what led you to this point? Yeah,
definitely. I've had a very diverse background in terms of career path. Yeah. So I joined the Army when I was 18. Yeah. I spent the first 3 years of my career enlisted in the Army. Okay. And while I was going to college at North Georgia College and State University up in Dahlonega. And as soon as I graduated, I went active duty into the Army, became a helicopter pilot. Did 2 tours to Afghanistan, ended up becoming the Deputy Director of Aviation for the Middle East. So I was overseeing all of our exercises, training, the troop rotations, the aircraft rotations across Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, basically everything going on in the Middle East. So I've worked at the most tactical levels of our Army, and then all the way up to theater, Army level operations.
Quite a wide array of experiences.
Yeah, definitely. That really taught me how to think through things in different lenses, how to be super tactical, but also how to think about things from a strategic lens. Mm-hmm. And then I had 2 kids while I was in the Army. From 2012 to 2018, there was not one year that I didn't spend time in the Middle East. Yeah. So I got a little burned out, decided I wanted to be more of a dad than a helicopter pilot anymore. So I got out, moved down to Sarasota, Florida, bought a house, didn't have a job, and then was like, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
I don't want to fly helicopters anymore.
Right.
I don't like, I had a business degree. I had my master's degree at that point, but they were kind of like general business.
Sure.
So funny story is I actually applied to the front desk job at this marketing agency.
Is that right?
Yeah. I like looked around and I was like, okay, who's the like big companies to work for in town? Who do I think is going to fit my personality?
Exactly, yeah.
Found this company called At Large, applied for the front desk job, and met with the owner, and he was like, look, you're not going to work at the front desk. You're overqualified for that. He's like, but I'll do this for you. Go sit in the back for 3 months.
Yeah.
I'll pay you, whatever you want to get paid for 3 months.
Yep.
Sit back there, and if you haven't figured out a job for yourself in 3 months, then we'll figure it out from there.
For sure.
I think I was like director of business development. So like when I couldn't figure out what I was doing, I was like trying to sell stuff.
Listen, I'm a big fan of made up titles. My
Yeah.
title here was made up. So, just find something and get after it.
Yeah. So I sat back there for about a month, was trying to do some sales, had some success in that, and then ended up standing up the client services team, and then ended up standing up the operations team, and then within 3 months, I was the managing director for the entire agency, from the marketing side to the technology side. And we worked mostly in sports and entertainment with some nonprofit clients. One of the biggest of those was IMG Academy. So that's really like where I got into this industry. And naturally, when you're at an agency doing that for IMG, a lot of other agencies want you to come. So I ended up working with Barca Academy out in Arizona, a couple other all across the country. And then on the entertainment side, we worked with Feld Entertainment, so Monster Jam, Supercross, Marvel Universe Live, Disney on Ice. And that was just really fun because that really got me in like the fan engagement, ticketing, those kind of things, and really understanding like how to apply technology from a red ops standpoint. So used that background, ended up standing up like a consulting arm on the back end of that, ended up consulting in the sports academy space for a couple years and doing some sports tech consulting. Worked for a golf company trying to build robots to teach people how to swing golf clubs. And then always was consulting with SPIRE kind of in the background. So
before you get into the SPIRE part, I'm gonna jump in here for a second, because I think your approach, your demeanor kind of filters throughout our organization in a couple of ways. One being, your humility to say, hey, I'm gonna apply for I've been flying helicopters, in really kind of high pressure environments, and I'm gonna apply for the front desk job. And so I think we have this demeanor about our organization that flows from that we really value everybody that's part of the organization. Like it doesn't work without that. And the other thing is, the fact that you've done so many different things, that also is something that I feel like SPIRE Academy is known for, is, everybody here, I don't know one person that's just kind of like in one silo, in one lane, that just does one thing. They try to fill multiple roles, wear multiple hats. And I think that's really an important part of our growth and development. So I think that also fits with kind of your leadership style and your imprint on this organization. So I just want to throw that in there.
No, I mean, I love startups. I love growth stage companies. SPIRE's definitely in that. And to your point, the people are really, kind of what make it that and make it transition from that startup to growth stage. Like you're right.
Couldn't agree more.
Everybody has multiple roles.
Right.
Everybody has a growth mindset. Everybody's focused on, not only the growth, but like the product and what's best for the student and what's best for the staff. And, it really is like a family mentality that we have here. Like everybody cares passionately about their job, cares passionately about each other, cares passionately about the student athletes, and everybody just comes from that place in everything that they do.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you throwing me a shout out there with the growth mindset. This is something that I'm trying to get to filter throughout the organization. So I appreciate that.
Definitely.
Shout out there. But so what interests you about SPIRE? I mean, you did a number of different things. Those are all really cool. You work with IMG Academy. Like, why SPIRE? What about this facility? What did you think the first time you walked in here or came to campus?
So the first time I stepped on campus at SPIRE was in 2019. The current owner, Jonathan, was doing a site visit and, trying to assess whether or not he was going to acquire it. I think they were pretty late in the stage at that point. So he brought in us to kind of figure out what we were going to do from a marketing, branding perspective to get things going. And honestly, I just walked around and I just saw a blank slate of opportunity.
Yeah.
Like massive facilities, massive infrastructure, world-class athletic facilities, and just the ability to do anything you can imagine because you literally had to build it from that moment forward.
Right.
And so
which is awesome.
Yeah.
Like you said, blank slate. I think you mentioned at one point that you had to scrape some cobwebs off of some of the
Oh
hallways
yeah,
when you walked in.
I mean, honestly, it kind of looked like a haunted house.
Yeah,
Like you could tell there hadn't been that many people here for a while.
right.
Like most of the lights were off.
Right.
I think there were like, a couple staff left. There
Yeah.
may have been 3 kids left in the academy.
Mhm.
So it was the perfect place for a rebuild and a relaunch.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just one of the most remarkable facilities I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it, like you said, it was ripe for somebody to put their imprint on it and have a vision and to take this facility, which is magnificent. I mean, just look where we're sitting here. I mean, we have world-class facilities here. I mean, there's hands down, when people drive onto campus, first thing they recognize is, hey, this place is awesome. I mean, it's massive, it's beautiful. I mean, I took a picture this morning of the sun coming up. We have beautiful falls here, and it's people appreciate this being a facility that just really stands out and has a lot of positive qualities about it. Yeah.
I think you see and you read like 850,000 square feet, 800 acres, and you're like, oh wow, that's big. And then the second you pull up to campus and you walk in the first building, you're like, oh wow, exactly. This is really big.
Yeah, it hits you.
Yeah,
like that's just a number. I mean, it's a big number.
Yeah,
but it's just a number. And then when you see it, it's like, hey, that's what that means.
Yeah,
we have a lot of space and a lot of area to grow and develop. So I know one of the areas of focus that we've had over the past several years as we've continued to build this thing and grow has been this idea of the SPIRE Way.
Yep.
Right. This concept that we're not just about athletic training. I mean, we are training our student athletes to be high level performers, but it can't just be that, right? We're training them to not only perform on the court, in the pool, on the track, but also in life, and in the classroom. Tell us a little bit about like what your thought process is with differentiating us in that way, being a sports academy that doesn't just focus on sport.
Yeah, so I really look at the SPIRE Way in 2 different lenses.
Okay.
Like I think there's an internal meaning and an external meaning, but at the core, like the SPIRE Way is the entire culture of the organization. So whenever I think about it externally, I think about it kind of what you were talking about from the student athlete perspective.
Right.
And that's where, we focus on the sport training development, the strength, the speed, the kind of performance aspect, your role with the mental skills, which, I think in and of itself is a differentiator for us.
Yes.
And then the academics, the mindset development, the nutrition. Like, I think a lot of organizations talk about doing that, and a lot of organizations do it. But I don't know of another organization that does it at the level that we do it, with the level of care that we do it at.
That's right.
And I use that word care because I think that's where it transitions to like that internal meaning of the SPIRE Way.
Yep.
So I think from, we were talking about our staff and like the growth mindset, the family environment. That's really like the SPIRE Way internally, is like everybody here cares so passionately about their jobs, so passionately about the student athlete, so passionately about that development of them as a holistic person.
Yeah.
Because look, at the end of the day, we all know that like student athletes have a limited opportunity. Like there are only so many professional roster spots. There are only so many collegiate roster spots. And I think that's one of the differentiators that we've focused on, is like that development of them to make sure that they're great athletes for when they need to be, but they're great human beings for life.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Like the saying goes, the ball deflates for everybody at some point. I mean, except maybe LeBron. Like he seems like he's going to keep going. But but at some point everybody's going to have that ability to transition to something different. And you take it to where you can, and then have those skills to really take your career in the direction you want, and have some of those groundwork, foundational skills built in. So you mentioned, the SPIRE Way being about that care, and us really being, I use the word holistic a lot because I feel like that's what we're really pushing. Is like, hey, you're not just an athlete. I mean, we talk a lot about identity and things like that, but I think a big part of that is just how our organization's structured from a logistical standpoint. So, my office is basically in our weight room, what we call performance. I get in the morning, and we have something that a lot of us participate in at different times that we kind of informally call our breakfast club, where we get in early in the morning, work out. We've got a beautiful facility. It's before the day gets going, before all the athletes are up there. I usually come in, get greeted by Bobby Khalil, and it's like hard not to have your energy level pumped up when you see him in the morning. But my office is right there. We're right above the academy, right, where the classrooms are happening. Our school nurse is right down the hall. Like, the way it's set up, it is very holistic. So my question to you is, with that, what do you feel like is the most beneficial aspect of kind of that model? Like, you talked about that care. How does that translate? What can students expect to get out of their experience here based on that model?
Yeah, I think if you take that word holistic and like maybe apply like business terminology to it, like the real advantage to a sports academy for the student athlete, and I would argue for the parent, because it's from a time and financial standpoint, is vertical integration. So like, just like you were saying, like the student athlete's schedule is built around everything that we include in that holistic mindset. And the great thing about it is that it's all here on campus. So you can go to academics, you can go to mental skills, you can go to performance, you can go to recovery, you can go to your dorm room, you can go to our student lounge and hang out with your friends, all within one confined campus. And, from a time standpoint, like these student athletes who aren't part of that kind of vertically integrated holistic experience, a lot of them are doing most, if not all of that, but it's stretched out and it's not as consistent and everything's not as programmed together.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it. I think that is the value here, is that connectedness of everything and the individuals that are executing it, So people who are executing nutrition know what the sports staff's doing, know what the performance staff is doing. I have a very close relationship with all of them in our department.
And like that's a really great point to like focus in on for a second, because I think whenever we talk about the level of facilities, like they're amazing, they're world class. Like this was a former Olympic site, so like that tells you the standard of the facilities. And then we've talked a lot about the people, but like the resumes of the people are more impressive than the facilities themselves. I mean, like,
and I want to get into that a little bit too.
Like you, for instance, like you're a doctor with multiple degrees in this space, on our location, working with student athletes every day in a full range of mental disciplines. Like Bobby Khalil over in performance, like he's trained UFC fighters, he's trained hostage rescue teams, he's trained professional athletes, and now our student athletes get the benefit of all of that every single day. Our teachers, absolutely phenomenal, diverse backgrounds, ESL, ELL, math, language, AP courses, all of that stuff, and they're doing it from like a very different environment. And then you get to the coaches, like, the #1 high school basketball coach maybe ever to like coach in high school basketball. Like that's awesome. But then you go to soccer and you've got, Sean Lane and Paul Smalley, who have like the highest level of coaching accolades and have coached national teams. Like,
and by the way, we got a couple Olympians coaching our track and field program.
2 Olympians coaching track and field, multiple collegiate coaches. I think Thad's latest count I saw was like 32 Olympians that he's trained over in the pool. It's incredible, really, like the opportunity that our student athletes are exposed to.
Yeah, I talk about that with our student athletes a lot. This idea of one of the ways we can get around some of our day-to-day struggles is gratitude. And I try to tell myself that, when the days get long or we're dealing with some challenges or struggles, like, be grateful for the fact that that's where you're going to work every day. Because there is a lot of special things about that, and I love that. And you brought up something I wanted to hit on, and I'm going to get to it now since you brought it up. Our teachers, right? And just like the ways they go about educating our student athletes. And we've kind of tried to take a step back and rethink that word. And what does that mean? Like, what are you leaving here with? Like, we've talked about this idea of a portrait of a graduate. When you leave SPIRE, what is it you're leaving here with? And I had a really cool experience actually just yesterday. Shout out to Miss Quarles in her science class. One of our staff members who does a lot of maintenance work around here and is around our facilities, also is a beekeeper. And so he brought in, he created this contraption where he's got his bees in there with the honeycomb and everything. He brought him into the science class, and shout out to Jake Kurtz. you know, he brought them in and explained to our students in real time, like, hey, this is what this looks like. Here's the queen. This is how she goes on her mating flight. Here are drone bees, how they pollinate. The research that's being done on this, people actually are getting stung on purpose right now.
Yeah.
This was new to me, but this is a new thing where it actually can help with like arthritis, and you know, the research in the bee venom can actually be beneficial in some ways. And so he's explaining all of this to our students. And so can you speak a little bit just to like our educational model and like our focus on academics in a traditional sense, but also rethinking it and trying to be kind of innovative in that space?
Yeah, definitely. So I think whenever you think about sports academies, you know, the first word is sports and the second word is academy. And so there's this definite connotation that everything is sports first. And look, it is a sports academy. Like all of our students are student athletes. So there is a high emphasis on sports.
Sure.
Like nobody should sit here and try to deny that.
Yeah.
But what I think our industry has done over time is maybe amplified the sports part too much, to the point to where, you know, I think we've started to accept academic models that don't set the student athlete up for long-term success. And so what do I mean by that? I mean, you know, they might be phenomenal athletes, but like we talked about earlier, your athletic career only takes you so far. Even if you make it all the way, all right, let's even take LeBron. Like, let's say 40, we'll call it 45. Like, LeBron's going to go to 45. You know, Brady falls in that window. And so you get that much. But then you still have an entire other lifetime to live.
Right.
And so what's the academic model that you've taken for your post-sport career? And I think that's where, one, we're trying to hold academics and athletics in parallel. So, you know, last year we got chartered as a for-profit school in the state of Ohio. And then in the spring, we got accredited by NEASC. And we intentionally chose NEASC. Like, I think whenever people think about boarding schools in America, you think about New England and you think about the academic rigor and the history. And so from an academic standpoint, like we wanted to be aligned with that tradition and that rigor and that kind of mentality around wanting to prosper in the academic field. And I think what that sets us up for is, you know, being differentiated in the academic space, not only from that accreditation level, but then how we start to evolve that model. You know, we could have just stayed chartered or we could have just gone accredited.
Right.
But really doing both gives us an opportunity to find new ways to innovate and find the pathways that really gives the best opportunity for our student athletes. So like when I think about how are our academics different, I think about it, one, from a scheduling standpoint. Like we've talked a lot about holistic and all the things that kids do. But like the great thing is that you and Bobby and the teachers and everybody else do a really good job of saying, okay, hey, the data, the research, the knowledge says, you know, they should be doing recovery here. They should be doing training here. They should be doing academics here. Like it should be broken up. It shouldn't be 5 hours of academics followed by 4 hours of performance. Everybody in the world knows that model is broken, and like we don't have bus schedules.
That's right.
So like, why would we do that?
Yes.
And so I think being able to apply that research and that expertise and create a model that integrates everything and allows for, you know, a 1 week, 2 week cycle of that holistic development, while still giving the kids time to be kids,
that's important,
is a really unique pathway for us.
Yeah, that's excellent. And you hit on a couple of really key points there. And you kind of delved into something I want to talk about here in a few minutes, which is, you know, our ability to test some of these things out. We just rolled out the SPIRE Performance Research Institute's free. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that entails. But that's a lab to kind of test some of these things out from a performance standpoint. We're also doing it from an educational standpoint in some ways. The other thing with NEASC, you know, I think, which is really important for us to get, is I don't know if people always realize how international our boarding academy is. You know, the other day, and we'll get into the international aspect. The other day, we had a really cool experience, and this is the type of thing that I think makes us unique in a lot of ways, especially where we're situated in Northeast Ohio. Is we had our head of our food and beverage, Bill Fagan. He actually consulted with the students and said, "Hey, what do you guys want more of?" And we've got a lot of students here from a lot of different countries. And one of the things they said is, "Hey, we should do some Caribbean food."
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of kids from Caribbean nations. And so they went about setting up the menu and cooking this for our students, for our staff, for our faculty. It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, like, it's hard to put that into a flyer or a pamphlet, like, hey, we're going to serve Caribbean food on a random Wednesday. But it's something that we do, and it like unites us in a different way. You get to experience different cultures. And can you speak a little bit though to the international focus and the international flavor that exists here at SPIRE?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Well, first, I love what Bill's doing over in Fuel. Like, I think they had oxtail that day. Like, that's like, how many high schools are serving oxtail on a daily basis? Like, or not a daily basis, but at all. Like, that's just a really cool thing for our student athletes to experience. And yeah, I think that adds elements of culture that you're not going to get anywhere else. And so really from day one, whenever we relaunched the academy, we've been about 50% international, 50% domestic. I think this year we're actually about 60% international, 40% domestic. And it's not, you know, we don't have a heavy concentration in Asia or a heavy concentration in South America. We have 34 different countries this year. And that's pretty systematic every single year of like the diversity of our student population. I think this year it's 34 countries and 27 states. Like, think about that. Even just from a U.S. standpoint, like the cultures of the North, with the cultures of the West, with the cultures of the South, with the cultures of the Midwest, all right here in Geneva, Ohio. But then you add in that international aspect where, you know, we've got kids from South America, Europe, Africa, coming from all over the world.
Yeah, all over the world.
Then, you know, I love what you guys do in the academy where, you know, it's like, we want everybody to practice speaking English and to get in that mentality. But two, we want there to always be like this inclusive dialogue of everybody being able to communicate. But then I'm walking down the hallways and stuff, and you hear everybody talking in all kind of different languages. And it's such a unique opportunity for a high school aged kid to get that level of cultural exposure so young in life. And I think it replicates, and I think our academic model does this too. It replicates what you're going to experience at the university level.
Yeah, absolutely. And you get it. You're immersed in it here.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, a couple ways. Like you said, some of the reason that some of our student athletes come here is to help improve their English. You know, they want that experience here. They want to be immersed in that environment. But then we also try to convey to our national students who are natural English speakers as their first language, like how much that entails, you know, trying to learn a second language and to go to classes where that's what's being spoken and speak that day to day. And that does come with a challenge. And so the cultural component is phenomenal here. But it doesn't come without its challenge.
Take that and apply it like at the macro level now, right? Like, you know, for so many decades, the NFL, the MLB, the NBA dominated the sports world. But it was all US. Like we were crowning the World Series champion in the MLB for 2 American teams, maybe a couple Canadians, you know. But like our student athletes get that world experience every single day.
They do.
And, you know, they're going to get that exposure whenever they get to the university. But then even, you know, if they make it to the pro ranks, those leagues are going global now. Like the ability to be comfortable in those environments and like, you know, you talk about keeping that mental space and like being able to like come back in. Imagine your first trip or your first exposure to French and French culture being on your first NBA game in France. Like our kids would be like, hey, yeah, I've been around French kids for years. Like
I was going to get in. We've spoke a lot already, and we haven't really delved into our athletics, which is you know, a big part of what we do here. So speak about, you know, I know our top basketball team is going to be going on a trip over to Europe. Can you tell us, like, how did that come about? Like, what is that experience going to entail?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it came about from the standpoint of, you know, thinking through the globalization of, you know, our culture, our sports and everything, and giving those student athletes that opportunity, but also getting to see the way different cultures play sports, getting exposed to a different level of athletic competition. Like whenever they're over there, they're not playing against only high school teams. Like the European culture is very different. These are going to be pro level teams with similarly aged athletes who, you know, the development pathway over there is very different. I mean, our kids probably have the most similar pathway for what that looks like.
Yep.
So they're going to get exposed to that. They're going to get to go on cultural experiences. You know, we've got a teacher traveling with them to be able to do all the academics while they're on the road. And I think
that's huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that goes with what we've been talking about, trying to keep everything in parallel. Like, just because you're going on a 10-day trip doesn't mean, you know, you get 10 days out of class. And so the trip really came apart from the fact that not only do we want our kids to have that exposure and that cultural element, but like we really want to start to build a global brand and a global competitive nature around high school sports.
Awesome.
That way it mirrors, you know, the collegiate and the NBA settings. That way our student athletes are set up for the most success.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great step towards doing that. And it's also allowing us to go showcase what we're building here. Obviously, you alluded to this earlier. I mean, made a big splash with the hire of Coach Kevin Boyle.
Yeah.
You know, can you talk a little bit about like how that has impacted just some of our you know, coverage of the facilities and kind of what we're doing here and building this academy and how big that hire was for us as a.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a funny story. Because you know, I think when you work at a sports academy, you obviously have like a natural interest in high school sports. There's just like different ones that I think you're more drawn to. Like I grew up playing hockey, and so like I follow a lot of hockey. You know, I love football, so I follow a lot of football. I watch the playoffs in basketball and like, you know, the Final Four, and then, you know, watch the high school games when they're on ESPN too. So when I heard about Coach Boyle, obviously the name was familiar, but like, I don't think I actually got it. And then one day, Coach Boyle texted me and he was like, "Hey, we're going to be on ESPN2 tonight." Mount Baird was playing IMG.
All right.
And so I tuned into that game and I'm watching it and I'm like, this is the Nick Saban of like high school basketball. Like the amount of championships, the amount of draft picks. Like I was actually on a call with him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Kevin has more draft picks, I think first round draft picks, than Duke and UNC.
That's wild.
Like think about that.
Yeah.
Like just
that's
like think about that from a high school coach standpoint. Like if you play for this coach, like your chances of getting drafted high in the NBA are higher than like if you just made it to Duke or UNC.
That's awesome.
Like that's incredible.
Well, and you spend a little bit of time around him or go over and watch. You kind of start to see why that's the case. You know?
I mean,
it's great for all of our coaches. I mean, we have top-notch coaches as it is, and just being around that and having the ability to kind of learn some things from somebody who's done it at that level, I think is awesome for us.
I always love this because, you know, I always see our coaches, you know, either in the hallway or something like that, and I'm always like, "Hey, how you doing?" Because like, you know, I want to hear about their family. Like I want to hear about how things are going. Like I want to check in on them, and it's never that response. It's like, "Oh, the team's doing this. Like this kid's injured. This kid's getting ready. This kid's prepped. The team looks good for this." And it's like they're always so locked in, just like
they're a different breed,
ready to go. And I love it though.
Coaches or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big part. I mean, we have a number of really high level coaches. Like you said, they are locked in and they get a lot of results. I mean, you could probably speak to a few of our programs. I know you mentioned talking with Coach Thad Schultz with swimming and kind of the Olympians he's trained, but some of our other sports, we've had some really high profile individual accolades and commitments. And then we've also had some really good team success as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. Swim obviously comes to mind. You know, Urquiz is a phenomenal swimmer, Mongolian athlete of the year, traveled around for the past 2 years, going to worlds and competing globally, but training right here at SPIRE, and all through Coach Schultz. And it was really interesting. I got an opportunity to go sit down with Coach Schultz this week, and we were talking through some stuff. And he was talking about the differences in coaching because, you know, we talk about having elite level coaches, but like it's really important to understand like their training philosophies and discipline philosophies and like team development aren't all the same.
Yeah.
And so he was talking about like 3 kids showed up late, really good kids, really good, like practice all the time, do everything the right way. And he was like, you have an option and a choice there. And like, I think this is a good leadership moment for our kids too, is like, do you do punishment? Do you do detention? Because like we treat practice like a class, you know? And he was like, rather than doing that, you know, they didn't get in the pool that day. They watched, they mentored, they coached, they learned, And then at the end of practice, he made them do a race to like compete against each other. I think that alone just shows you like, it would have been very easy for him to say jump into practice if it was all about sports.
Correct.
But that's not what it's all about.
Right.
It's about developing these young men and women into like becoming leaders and becoming, you know, I look at it and like the metrics I'm more interested in, like, to be honest with you, we're going to put kids in D1.
Yeah.
We're going to put kids in D2. We're going to put kids in D3. Like, I think our like average rate of acceptance into a sports program is like 97, 98%.
Yeah, sounds
like,
about right.
It's crazy compared to like a normal high school.
Yep.
That's great. But we're a sports academy. Like, I look at that, that's our job. Like, that's not the bonus. I think the bonus is like, how many are team captains? How many are leaders at their school?
Yeah.
How many are, you know, thinking about the next opportunity and going to go on to like start sports tech companies and things like that? Like,
exactly.
Those are the stats I want to follow.
Absolutely. And we're creating some of those people. I mean, that's with this model, we're allowing our students to develop those skills, and they're going to go out in the world and do some of those things. I'm very confident about that.
Yeah.
And you brought up, I mean, that example really illustrates our approach to, you know, we could have made it punitive. We could have said, hey, it's all right. You know, like, you're important. We're going to throw you into practice. But we really try to use those things as a learning experience.
Yeah.
And I feel like our coaches, they all have slightly different philosophies and ways of going about things, but they're really good at finding ways to use these as teaching moments. And that is what is cool. I mean, we in some ways treat our teachers as coaches. You know, they take a similar mindset. It's like, we're really trying to guide you towards development.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that model is really cool that it's across the board. And our coaches influence our teachers, and I think our teachers probably influence our coaches as well.
And I mean, you could flip that too. Like, our coaches act as teachers, you know, teaching life skills,
that might even be a better
sports
way to
training.
Yeah.
But I think that's just part of the culture too.
Yep.
Like, back to that, like, building that, making sure that everybody understands the development pathway that we're trying to do. Like, it's not all about championships.
That's
like,
right.
At the end of the day, championships are great. Accolades are great. Individual accolades are great. You know, like, you asked about a couple more sports, like wrestling. Like, right now, you know, we've got Jason Doobie, who's in the top 15 in the entire nation in wrestling. What an incredible opportunity for him to be able to train here every day. And then we host the USA national tournament. So he gets to like compete, you know, at the national level on his home court. Right. Like, how many high school kids get that opportunity?
He's the perfect example of what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
You know, great wrestler, even better kid. Like, phenomenal. I mean, just a maturity about him. That we did a piece on him, actually, that kind of went behind the scenes, which was really well done. If you haven't checked it out, you should definitely go take a look. But he's a great example, right? High achieving wrestler, but somebody who really is extremely well-rounded. Just as good as person as he is a wrestler. And that's a great example. I know you mentioned wrestling. I mean, our women's basketball team has taken a big step this year. We've got a couple of individuals there who I think are going to make that team really special to watch this year.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you look at Sanaya, like, before Sanaya even got here, like, the first time I saw her, she was on NBA Today on ESPN announcing that she was going to USC next year. You know, she brought some of her teammates with her. And then the next time I see her, she's captain of Team USA, and they're winning the world championships before their season even starts. And so getting that level of opportunity, you know, not only for those athletes, for us to, like, I think really take care of them. Because, like, we talked a little bit about, like, how youth sports is now. You know, those high-level athletes, I think, are getting a lot of the elements that we provide, but it's not in a systematic way.
Right.
So I think, you know, when somebody like Sanaya comes here, like, she doesn't need to be at a sports academy. Like, she was already going to USC before she got here. She was already playing for Team USA. Like, she could be at a local high school and have that. Already. But the value that she sees is, you know, the mindset, the recovery, the performance, the fact that, like, she's not going to get overcoached, overtrained, over-competed, and, like, her body's going to break down before she even gets to college and gets that opportunity to actually achieve the goals she's trying to achieve. Right. And I think that's what people really need to think about when they think about, like, what does the sports academy actually do?
Right.
It's that holistic, it's that vertically integrated model, but all with, like, an acute level of attention to detail and preparation and recovery all mixed together.
Yeah, and I think at a high level, that's exactly right. And, like, what that looks like day to day, you know, you mentioned Sanaya. I mean, she's got 3 teammates who are all D1 committed
Yeah.
as well. You know, you got Frankie, Gigi, and Peanut all going to pretty high level schools
Yeah.
as well. And what's cool is, I mean, at any other school or a lot of other schools, you know, they'd be walking around, they'd be the star on campus, everybody be, you know, fawning over them, paying attention to them. And not that they don't get me wrong, right? Yeah. They do. They are big personalities on campus, but we have a lot of those.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool to see that experience play out where they get to interact with other students who kind of get it,
Yeah.
right? Who've been through that experience, know that there's this exposure and know the NIL world and know that this is sometimes high pressure,
Yeah.
you know, and how do you deal with that? And I think they learn a lot from one another throughout that process.
Yeah,
which
like
is a huge benefit.
Pull that thread for a second.
Yeah.
Like you talk about culture and kind of like, you know, what it means to be at a sports academy.
Yep.
Like if on the first day at any other high school in the country, you've got, you know, let's get really stereotypical for a second here. Like you've got your nerds, your jocks, you're like, you know, all these different cliques that end up making up like the high school experience
Yep.
that we all know. The first time all these kids step on campus, everybody's a jock.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody is, you know, I don't want to say high level, but like they're proficient in their sport. Some of them are very, very high level,
Yep.
and some of them like come here because they want the development. Like they want to be part of that growth path. They, you know, their current path might not have put them on a trajectory to achieve their goal.
Precisely.
And like we're going to give them that opportunity, you know, through all the things we've been talking about. So I think just tying it back to like the culture thread, like that's a really growth moment, growth mindset opportunity for our student athletes because
Absolutely.
they have to learn how to navigate that and, you know, kind of get along with other A-type personalities,
Yep.
which I think carries them into the locker room and everywhere else as they go through their
Definitely.
career.
Yes. Well, and when you mentioned that growth mindset, you know, our wrestling coach, Coach Kolzicki, uses a phrase that I like a lot. You're either winning or you're learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
That really embodies growth mindset. And that is something, you know, when I talk to our student athletes, a lot of times I'll mention that iron sharpens iron. Like
Yeah.
you need to go up day to day against other really good competition. And you don't always have that at your local high school. You know, if you're the best player, you know, we often talk about goals.
Yeah.
And early in the year, I'll say, well, what are your goals? If it's just to win, like I'll go talk to your coach. We'll get you a schedule. You'll go, you know, 20-0 this year. But are you going to get better?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably not. But we're gonna set you up with a schedule where, hey, we're gonna test you, and we need to find where that limit is and push that and help you grow.
Yeah.
And I think this environment embodies that. And for individuals like that, it's a chance to go out there and apply your skills on a day-to-day basis at a really high level.
Yeah, I mean, like my favorite quote on this topic was from Coach Karan.
Yeah.
You know, 3 Olympic medals, coaching here in the sprints and track and field department, and she said this quote about 2 years ago, and like I think it's kind of stuck with everybody.
Yeah.
She said, "I don't coach talent, I coach potential."
That's
And
really
like
good.
you know,
like
when
that.
you really think about what we do, like you know, the talented athletes are on a pathway to success. We're going to help accelerate and you know take care of them while they're here.
Absolutely.
But that potential athlete, like that's who we want.
Yep.
Like because we have a really unique opportunity to change their entire life trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like
that's the goal.
Like think about that. Like every single year, you get an opportunity to affect hundreds of future lives.
Yeah,
Like,
talk about grateful. I mean, that's something I'm grateful to have an opportunity to be a part of.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And by the way, that is the most Coach Karan quote I can ever imagine, right? That embodies her to a T right there.
Yeah.
You know, she's big in that. So I'm gonna go a little different direction real quick and ask you, you know, we talk a lot to parents of prospective students, you know, when they come visit and they want to know, hey, what is it we're doing? What does the schedule look like? How does this differentiate from, you know, sending my kid to this school or that school? You know, as a parent yourself and, you know, somebody who's kind of lived this and breathed it for the last 5-6 years, what would you say to prospective parents, you know, if they say like, why here? Like, why am I sending my kid to Geneva, Ohio? You know, it's 45 minutes to the east of Cleveland. You know, there's not as much maybe activity as where they're coming from out here. Maybe way away from home.
Yeah.
Like what is the reason? You know, we've touched on a few, but I'm curious as to what your main reason would be to kind of choose SPIRE Academy.
Yeah, I'll put my parent hat on to answer this one instead of giving you like the tagline answers.
Yeah, that's good. I appreciate that.
So, you know, I've got 4 kids. Like none of them are high school age yet. They're 8, 8, 10, and 11.
Okay.
So we're early in our like athletic journey. But when I think about them and I think about their future, you know, I want them to have the opportunity to be able to achieve their dream.
Sure.
And, you know, like I can already see it at that age. Like they're at different ranges of sport. You know, all kids are different. And some of them I know are going to need additional support. Some of them are accelerating quickly. Some of them you can already kind of see that like competitive edge kicking in, and like they're getting mad after games that they lose and stuff. And then other ones are like, oh, let's go get pizza. But it's all great. And I think when I think about, you know, what do I want them to get in a high school experience, and what do I want them to be able to take away from, you know, that chapter of their life, the opportunity to achieve their goal.
Yep.
And whatever gives them that best career path. So like whenever I think about, you know, possibly sending my kid off to a boarding school, or I think about, you know, what would that mean for them to not go the traditional school route, but go to like a sports academy. I think it's more of thinking about it from the mindset of opportunity and putting them in the best position to give them the chance to achieve their goal and just be set up for success.
Really well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think opportunity is kind of the word that stood out to me there when you were talking. It's like we're trying to provide a really good opportunity for people to chase their goals, chase their dreams.
Yeah.
And give them whatever resources we can, and think through that and help them set that up where they can chase those dreams.
Because like, you know, okay, now tie that back to like our programming, right? Like, I'm gonna be real. Most of my kids at this point in life are probably not going to be collegiate or professional athletes. Maybe, you know, they might watch this. They might watch this interview in 10 years and be like, "Thanks, Dad."
Yeah, I'm a developmental process.
Yeah.
That's right.
But what I think one of the unique things about SPIRE and like why this would stick out to me is the sport-related majors that we're developing. Like clearly, if you make a choice to come here, whether you're a developmental or elite athlete, like you love sports.
Yes.
Like you have to. I think even to work here, you have to love sports, or at least have like a passion for them. And so with the sport-related majors, we're giving our student athletes a chance to have an alternate career path that's still associated with their passion. So, you know, whether it's sports marketing, kinesiology, which we're developing, the business of sports, you know, sports media, those are all things where like, you know, imagine going to a local high school and like Zac might be like the star quarterback and then he's going to go play at Ohio State. And like, if I was
Good
one
choice,
of,
by the way.
yeah, go Dogs. So
go Bucks.
if I was, you know, if I was one of those kids who was lucky enough to be like Zac's friend and into like sports marketing, then like I might get to ride that wave with him and like be part of that journey. But the kids here, like think about it. There's 250 Zac Brubacks. And so you're in this network of student athletes that are all going to the next stage.
Sure.
And so whether you advance in your athletic career or not, like you're still going to be passionate about that. But now you've got skills to be able to follow, you know, your friends and your connections like down a similar career path.
Right. No, that's phenomenal. I think that's really well said, and it kind of encapsulates really what we've been discussing here. One of the other things that comes to mind, because, you know, I said that I met you back in 2021.
Yeah.
I know you've been at this a little bit longer, actually, as a consultant here. As we've grown, I think when I started, maybe there was like 36 or 37 student athletes that were in our academy. We've grown to now pushing up on 250.
Yeah.
With that growth, I mean, we've done a lot of really incredible things, and I think we're figuring a lot of stuff out as we go and really fine-tuning our programs. But it doesn't come without challenges.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about like navigating those, and as you grow, like what are the things that do pop up in terms of challenges with creating a sports? I mean, we're competing against schools. You mentioned earlier, like NIAS. I mean, a lot of the schools we're competing against are like 100 years old. You know, like we play against Western Reserve Academy sometimes, and you know, I think they're over 100 years old at this point, and we're brand new. So take me through the challenges that kind of we face and how we address those.
Yeah, look, I think anytime you're growing, whether it's individually or as an organization, if there's not challenges, then how are you growing? Like if you didn't have challenges, you would just really just be continuing down the same pathway.
Good question.
So I always look at challenges from like they're good problems to have.
Yeah.
Like I probably say that at least once a day.
Yeah.
Is like, you know, people are like, how's your day going? It's like, well, we got some challenges, but they're growth challenges.
Yeah.
And those are good problems to have. Like I'd much rather have growth challenges than have the alternate of like, how are we trying to get students here? How are we trying to do this? Like,
For sure.
I think if you look at this industry, like, you know, single sport academies, maybe 2 sport academies are starting to pop up all over the country now. We're one of the very few like multi-sport academies in terms of like having 8 different sports. And I think as you look across the industry, like our ability to go from, you know, we launched the school in 2020.
Yeah.
Like perfect time to launch a boarding school.
Yeah,
like
right?
we literally could not
Ideal
have planned
timing.
it any
Yeah.
better. So to launch that, but still get 35 kids here that year,
Right.
and then you fast forward to 2025, and now we're 250 plus. You know, looking at 300 next year, we're already the second biggest in the country.
That's wild.
And we're still one of the newest.
Mm-hmm.
So I think when I think about the challenges, I look at them from a grateful mindset. Like we have growth challenges, which I'm appreciative for.
Yes. Yeah. Love that mindset. Right. Appreciate the growth and the challenges that come with it, because it forces you to grow. You know, it really does. And you alluded to some of the challenges that we face just as an academy. But the one thing we haven't really talked a lot about is we have an academy here, but we also, it's a phenomenal facility. What else takes place at SPIRE? So we've got the academy going on. Our students have access to a lot of other things that take place here, though.
Yeah.
Give me a sense of like what else takes place at SPIRE.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with events. Yeah. So like a ton of community events, ton of collegiate events, a ton of just youth sports athletic events, you know, which give them opportunities to look at different things. I think last year we had over 1.5 million people come on campus to do events, watch events, you know, take part in academy games and stuff like that. So the events is one like just phenomenal piece. And I think particularly whenever you look at the college events that take place here, or like the kind of like USA Federation level events that take place, like the fact that our athletes get to go watch that on a consistent basis and learn and grow and like see how they train, see how they prepare, see how they compete, gives them a different mindset and a different advantage.
Absolutely.
And then the next piece is our leagues and clubs. So we have a volleyball club, and we have a soccer club, and we have a swim club. And I think that's just keeping up with the industry. You know, a lot of the industry is, you know, you have your academic competition season, and then you have your club competition season to be able to compete nationally. I think, again, going back to the advantage of here is like our academic schedule is lighter on the competition because our focus is on training and development, but we build out that full competition schedule over a longer pathway by giving them the opportunity to go do club and get the exposure that comes along with club. And then we also just do recreational leagues. You know, we have soccer leagues and basketball leagues, all for, you know, elementary up through middle school until they start getting into the high school sports. We're about to launch a flag football league, which is going to be fantastic.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I know that's a growing area. Flag football is something I hear a lot of people talking about.
Yeah. And I think that's an important aspect of our growth and where we've continued. Like, you know, we've been about 60% male, 40% female. But we've been adding female sports along the way. Like we mentioned girls basketball, we launched girls soccer 2 years ago. We've got volleyball, you know, flag football is going to be another opportunity for girls sports.
Okay. Is there any talk? I mean, that leads into another question. Like any talk of growing our sports? I mean, I know we've got a number of them, but flag football seems like one that might be right for the.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, my goal is to have the first girls flag football team by the 2028 Olympics to kind of like ride that wave.
That's right.
Yeah, so definitely girls flag football. I think we'll male volleyball. Like our club has explored opportunities with males, and we've had males in camps and stuff like that. And I think you see that starting to emerge. And then obviously being in the state of Ohio, American football is coming, you know, and I think we're in a great recruitment hotbed, but also our ability to attract national talent. So I think when we launch football, we're going to launch it right. Like it's going to be, you know, a national level program from day one. But that opportunity exists because of, you know, the people that we have around us. Like, you know, Ray Lewis has been with the organization for a long time. He brings a lot of great football contacts. Brian Westbrook, Joe Flacco, you know, a number of different.
AFC North right
now. Yeah, I mean, that game was amazing. It was
awesome.
Yeah. So I think, you know, football is definitely on the map. Obviously, being a hockey guy, I think hockey's
cool.
on the roadmap. As long as I'm in the seat, we're gonna, you know, keep hockey on the roadmap. And I think that's unique because hockey's got a different pathway, and there's not really like a true sports academy that has hockey yet. So so more sports are going to come.
And I know we both have jobs to do. I mean, I could honestly sit here all day and talk about the different things that I forget about some of the things we have happen here. You know, we have disabled veterans that come in twice a week and work out, and our students get a chance to interact with them. Some days I'm leaving and they're out sailing, you know, makeshift sailboats out on our, some people call it lake. I call it a pond. We have a big lake out there. Like Lake Erie's a lake. This is more of a pond, but you know, they're sailing the sailboats.
Retention pond.
You know, they'll say, oh, the lake. I'm like, that's not lake. The lake's about, you know, 10 minutes down the road. But just, it's incredible the number of things that we're able to host at this facility, you know, drone racing, just things you wouldn't necessarily think about. You know, our ability to host events here with the commercial kitchen.
So
in our banquet
funny story,
facility.
the first time I actually walked in this building, there were a bunch of guys in here flying RC model planes around. And so it was like, I mean, it looked like you were walking into an airport with all the planes flying around in here. And it's, I mean, it just speaks to the scale and the scope.
It does.
Yeah.
I feel like that's great. You know, we've covered a lot here. Anything that we haven't touched on you feel like, you know, you would like to speak to, or that you want to share with the folks listening?
Yeah, definitely. So we touched on the Institute for a second, but I want to take an opportunity to explain that a little bit more, because I think that's key to our model going forward. So up in performance, you know, where your office is, we have all of the new technology that we're bringing in. And so I look at the Institute from a couple different levels. You know, number one is the student athlete experience that it creates. So some of the tech you guys have up there and some of the like products like aren't even available on the market yet, but our student athletes and our coaches are getting training and exposure to that. And I think the best part of that is you guys are taking the data and the results from that and building it into our training and development curriculum and programming.
It's huge.
Like from a standards perspective and like a pushing the envelope forward perspective, like that keeps us at the cutting edge of everything. So that's huge. But then also the way that we're tying together the sports tech, med tech, government agencies, and creating this ecosystem of opportunity within the real world lab at Performance, you know, allows us to not only take that data and use it internally, but then do some medical validation, you know, with our university partners and really validate that and do the testing here in our programs, but then take that and deliver that out into the industry.
It's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about some of the challenges in youth sports, but you know, the way I really see the Institute is the Institute should be a thought leader for the advancement of youth sports.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we should be not only using our ecosystem and our performance center as a proving ground, but like taking that knowledge and sharing it with the rest of the industry. That way we can start to eliminate some of these challenges. And then I think the third piece of it is like, you know, from a business and a growth mindset, like how does it feed into other opportunities? How are we using it with the classrooms? Like take the MVTs that you brought in, like phenomenal mental skills tool. But then I think the biggest metric that spoke to me when you were telling me about it and wanting to get them was like, you know, they advertise that there's a percentage increase inside the classroom. And then you get those boards and they've got the screens and the kids are doing the light stuff.
We're just up there doing it this morning.
But then like they're doing flashcards for history while they're doing that. Like that's next level, like really phenomenal stuff.
You know, and it's funny. I just exemplified what I was talking about. Like we have so much going on. I forget, like, I don't know. I spend 10 to 12 hours a week working on these things, and NVT, neurovisual training, is like one of the things I'm most excited about, and I neglected to even mention it. But you know, that's one of those things there that I think is cutting edge. The fact that our athletes, our students really, having access to this type of technology, and it's not just there. It doesn't just exist like, hey, go jump on this, you know, board, or go jump on this, you know, piece of technology. It's like, no, this is how we're integrating it, and it provides an educational framework,
Right.
which allows our students to learn in a way that's just very different from, the traditional model of learning, where it's, just like taking in information very passively. And I think our teachers are phenomenal at going up to performance, going out to the pond, doing labs with the facilities we have, and using the technology that SPIRE is going to eventually kind of push forward and kind of test in a real world lab setting.
But I think that's really part of the vertically integrated model. Like, I can still remember being in high school, getting to go to, our physics class. Like, I grew up in Atlanta, so we went to Six Flags, took our little T83 calculator, and it had like a little monitor on it, and like we measured the force, like going around a roller coaster. Like, our kids walk upstairs from physics class, see the force plates, and get to like apply like their actual training and development stuff and their like strength training into like a real world classroom application setting, like very fluidly. That's you talk about like comprehension and like the ability to like actually concretely understand topics and subjects. Like, you're putting that framework of that academic curriculum in something that the student is passionate about.
I mean, and you take like Lubu, for instance, like, which is a force plate technology, and just talking about like something like that, you're almost getting like a master's level ability to see research conducted, where you're going in and we're collecting data, we're figuring out like what can we translate those variables to and correlate them with, and figure out like, is there a way to maybe change our training around a little bit to reduce injuries, or is there a way to get around some of the cognitive fatigue that happens in the course of a long day. And so I think that's the idea with the SPIRE Performance Research Institute, is we start testing some of these things, and the questions that exist, the problems that we know are out there, start having that conversation about how do we start to answer these and give that conversation what it's due. And I'm really excited about being part of. I know we've both had a role in the SPIRE Performance Research Institute there, and just kind of getting that off the ground. And I know you've been really instrumental in that, and working with Bobby and just all the companies that allows us to talk to and find out what's out there has been a huge corollary benefit to what we're doing with everything.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
This is great. No, I really appreciate your time today. This has been a lot of fun. Actually, I could probably do this for quite a long time, in terms of just sitting down and chatting about what we got going on. Like I said, we're living it day to day, so it's not hard for us to come up with different things that I feel like are really important and do set us apart in a lot of ways. But I feel like we did a good job of touching on a lot of the key points and things we're really excited about. And I know you're extremely busy right now with everything we've got going on, and so I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to sit down and just chat about this and to kind of get this podcast kicked off in the right way. So appreciate you being the inaugural guest. Hopefully this turns into a little something, and you can always go back and say, hey, I was the first. I was the first one on there. So
no, it was fun.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I appreciate you being part of the SPIRE Sessions. For those of you who are listening or watching, feel free to go to spireacademy.com, check out our socials, have a lot of information. Our social media team does a great job of putting a lot of really quality content out there to give you a sense of what's going on here on a day-to-day basis. So give us a follow, check us out, and it was a pleasure to have you guys listening and following along.